June 20th, 1944, USS Enterprise, Philippine Sea. Lieutenant Junior Grade Saburo Kitamura of the Imperial Japanese Navy stood in the enlisted mess hall, his hands shaking as he held a tray loaded with more food than his entire squadron had shared in 3 days. Fried chicken, mashed potatoes swimming in butter, green beans, white bread, apple pie, and a glass of cold milk. The American sailor behind the serving line, irritated by the delay, gestured impatiently at the ice cream station. "You want chocolate or vanilla?" The question made no sense. Ice cream didn't exist on warships. Ice cream required refrigeration that combat vessels couldn't spare. Yet here, on America's most battle-hardened carrier, enemy prisoners were being offered a choice of frozen desserts. Kitamura had been pulled from the Philippine Sea 4 hours earlier. One of 43 Japanese airmen recovered during the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. He expected execution, or at best, starvation and torture. Japanese propaganda had been explicit. Americans were barbarians who ate their prisoners, devils who delighted in suffering. Instead, medical corpsmen had treated his wounds, given him morphine for pain, and now offered him ice cream flavors. The chocolate or vanilla question would haunt him for decades, the moment his understanding of the war, of America, of everything, began to crumble. Across the Pacific War, approximately 35,000 Japanese military personnel would experience American naval captivity and witness abundance that shattered everything they believed about their enemy's weakness. They discovered carriers where enlisted sailors ate better than Japanese admirals, where machinery produced fresh water from seawater in unlimited quantities, where ice cream machines operated continuously despite combat operations. These encounters with American naval logistics would demolish the spiritual foundations of Japanese military ideology more thoroughly than any defeat in battle. The mathematics of maritime abundance were calculated in calories and capabilities. While Japanese sailors subsisted on rice balls and pickled vegetables, American crews consumed 4,100 calories daily of varied, fresh foods. While Japanese carriers hand-pumped aviation fuel, American ships automated everything. While the Imperial Navy prayed to gods for divine winds, the U.S. Navy manufactured its own weather with refrigeration, air conditioning, and ice cream at sea. The transformation began the moment Japanese survivors were pulled aboard American vessels. Commander Mitsuo Fuchida, mastermind of Pearl Harbor who later became a Christian minister in America, documented his 1945 rescue experience aboard the USS Missouri. "They hauled me up like a caught fish, and I prepared for death. Instead, a medical officer examined my injuries while a sailor brought coffee. Real coffee, hot, with sugar and cream. I hadn't tasted coffee since 1942. The sailor apologized that they were out of donuts." This casual mention of depleted donut supplies while Japanese forces were eating leather belts revealed the gulf between propaganda and reality. The Imperial Japanese Navy's own reports, captured after the war, showed that by 1944, enlisted sailors received approximately 1,400 calories daily when supplies were available. Protein came primarily from fish when boats could spare fuel for fishing. Vitamin deficiency was endemic. Beriberi, scurvy, and night blindness plagued crews. American naval rations, by contrast, included fresh meat daily, frozen vegetables, fresh baked bread, dairy products, eggs for breakfast, and multiple beverage options. The Office of Naval Records shows that carrier mess halls in 1944 served approximately 15,000 meals daily on large carriers, with menus rotating through dozens of options. Tuesday might feature roast beef, Thursday fried chicken, Sunday ham with pineapple. Japanese prisoners, accustomed to unchanging rice rations, couldn't comprehend this variety at sea. The shock deepened when Japanese prisoners discovered enlisted men's quarters. Petty Officer Kazuo Sakamaki, captured from a midget submarine at Pearl Harbor, and America's first Japanese POW, later wrote about his amazement at American submarine facilities. The enemy submarines had showers with hot water. The crews slept in bunks with mattresses and clean sheets. They had a library of books and magazines. The mess hall had a coffee urn that never emptied. They lived better underwater than we lived on land. The presence of ice cream machines on American warships delivered particularly devastating psychological impact. The Japanese Navy considered ice cream impossible at sea, a luxury requiring resources no combat vessel could spare. Yet by 1943, the U.S. Navy operated floating ice cream factories. The USS Lexington's ice cream plant could produce 500 gallons daily. Concrete barges were converted to ice cream vessels, producing 5,000 gallons per shift. When the USS Lexington, CV-16, was torpedoed and listing, sailors evacuating to other ships reportedly rescued ice cream stocks before abandoning ship. Japanese prisoners watched American damage control parties, exhausted from fighting fires and flooding, receive ice cream sundaes as battle rations. The cognitive dissonance was overwhelming. Their nation, fighting for its existence, couldn't provide basic nutrition to forces. The enemy, supposedly decadent and weak, gave ice cream to sailors during combat. Chief Petty Officer Yoshio Yamada, captured when his destroyer sank at Leyte Gulf, spent 3 days aboard USS Iowa before transfer to shore facilities. His smuggled diary, discovered decades later, recorded, "The battleship's crew eats in shifts, but the food never stops. They have machines that peel potatoes, slice bread, make ice. The kitchen runs 24 hours. They threw away more food after one meal than my entire ship received in weekly supplies. When I asked why they waste, the guard laughed and said, 'It's not waste if you have unlimited supplies.'" The laundry facilities stunned Japanese prisoners accustomed to washing clothes in seawater. American carriers had industrial washing machines, dryers, and pressing equipment. Enlisted sailors received clean uniforms twice weekly. Fresh water, precious beyond measure on Japanese ships where men went weeks without bathing, flowed freely for showers, laundry, and cleaning. The evaporators on USS Enterprise could produce 140,000 gallons of fresh water daily, more than the entire Japanese carrier force could produce combined. Recreation facilities on American carriers seemed impossible fiction to Japanese military minds. Ships had movie theaters showing Hollywood films, libraries with thousands of books, gymnasiums with basketball courts, hobby shops for woodworking and crafts. The USS Enterprise's newspaper, published daily at sea, included sports scores, comic strips, and news from home. Japanese carriers had meditation spaces and shrine rooms. American carriers had soda fountains serving milkshakes. Lieutenant Commander Takeshi Maeda, captured after his Zero was shot down over Iwo Jima, spent 2 weeks aboard USS Bunker Hill. He later testified to American interrogators, "Your enlisted sailors live better than our officers. They have radios in their quarters, photographs of girlfriends, packages from home with chocolate and cigarettes. They complain about food that would be a feast for Japanese admirals." One sailor threw away a candy bar because it had melted slightly. That candy bar represented more sugar than Japanese pilots saw in months. The medical facilities exposed another gulf. Japanese naval medicine focused on returning wounded to duty regardless of condition. American sick bays treated enemies with the same advanced care as their own sailors. Operating theaters on carriers had X-ray machines, blood banks, surgical equipment matching shore hospitals. Antibiotics, particularly penicillin, seemed like magic to Japanese medical personnel, who watched infected wounds heal in days instead of killing in weeks. Pharmacist's mate second-class Robert Wagner, serving aboard USS Intrepid, later recalled treating Japanese prisoners. They couldn't believe we'd waste medicine on enemies. One pilot with a badly infected leg wound kept trying to refuse treatment, saying, "Save it for Americans." I had to show him our medical stores, lockers full of sulfa, penicillin, morphine, to convince him we had plenty. He started crying. The repair facilities demonstrated American industrial supremacy at sea. Japanese ships limped back to homeland ports for any significant repair. American vessels fixed themselves while underway. Floating dry docks, repair ships, and carrier machine shops could manufacture replacement parts, rebuild engines, and fabricate entirely new equipment. USS Enterprise's machine shop could produce any part smaller than an airplane engine. The welding shop operated continuously. The electrical shop rewired systems while the ship fought. When kamikaze attacks intensified in 1945, Japanese pilots who survived crashes witnessed American damage control superiority firsthand. Ensign Ryuji Nagatsuka, rescued after his damaged Zero ditched near USS Randolph, watched the carrier's crew repair kamikaze damage while conducting flight operations. They had foam that stopped fires instantly, pumps that removed water faster than it entered, metal plates that sealed holes while we watched. Teams worked with choreographed precision. No shouting, no confusion. They fixed in hours what would have sunk Japanese carriers. The food production systems on American carriers defied Japanese comprehension. Bakeries produced 15,000 loaves of bread daily. Butcher shops processed whole beef carcasses stored in freezers larger than Japanese submarines. Ice machines produced tons of ice daily for food preservation and drinks. The galley on USS Enterprise used more electricity than entire Japanese destroyers. Steam kettles could cook 300 gallons of soup simultaneously. Electric mixers, automatic dishwashers, and mechanical potato peelers handled tasks requiring dozens of Japanese sailors. Supply ships revealed the final dimension of American abundance. Japanese naval units waited months for resupply, often receiving fraction of requirements. American fast carrier groups received supplies weekly at sea. Fleet oilers transferred millions of gallons of fuel. Ammunition ships delivered tons of ordnance. Store ships brought fresh food, mail, replacement personnel, and luxury items. Lieutenant Minoru Tanaka watched underway replenishment from USS Hornet's brig. 3 ships came alongside simultaneously, fuel lines to port, ammunition, high lines to starboard, helicopters delivering mail overhead. They transferred more supplies in 3 hours than Japanese carriers received in 3 months. The fresh food included lettuce, tomatoes, and fruit. Real fruit. We were fighting for the emperor with empty stomachs, while Americans ate salads at sea. The mail system particularly amazed Japanese prisoners, who might receive 1 letter yearly if fortunate. American sailors received mail weekly, even in combat zones. V-mail, photographically reduced letters, arrived by thousands. Packages from home contained cookies, candy, books, records, and photographs. The mail call, impossible for Japanese forces operating beyond homeland waters, maintained American morale through connection to home. Christmas 1944 provided the most profound psychological impact. Japanese prisoners aboard American vessels witnessed holiday celebrations that exceeded pre-war Japanese New Year feasts. Menus from USS Enterprise, December 25, 1944, documented roast turkey with stuffing, ham with pineapple glaze, mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, cranberry sauce, 3 vegetables, fresh rolls, 3 pie varieties, ice cream, candy, nuts, and coffee. Seaman First Class Hiroshi Nakamura, imprisoned aboard USS Saratoga, wrote in a hidden diary, "The Americans celebrated their Christmas while we attacked them. Every sailor received presents from organizations at home. Cigarettes, candy, books, razors. The mess hall was decorated with paper and lights. They sang songs and played music. They were happy. We were starving and dying for the Emperor, while our enemies celebrated with abundance. This was when I knew Japan had already lost." The revelation went beyond food to fundamental worldview. The Yamato spirit, Japan's belief that spiritual strength could overcome material disadvantage, crumbled against American industrial reality. Ensign Takeo Yamamoto, captured at Okinawa, later wrote, "We were taught Americans were soft, that their abundance made them weak. But I watched them fight fires for 12 hours, then eat ice cream and return to battle. The abundance didn't weaken them. It sustained them. We were the weak ones, pretending spirit could replace food." By war's end, Japanese prisoners had witnessed impossibilities. Carriers producing fresh water from seawater, ice cream in the tropics, movies at sea, laundries in combat zones, hospitals afloat, machine shops in battle. They had tasted foods most Japanese never knew existed: hamburgers, hot dogs, milkshakes, apple pie, chocolate cake. They had experienced democracy's abundance, enlisted men eating officers' food, all races serving together, enemies receiving medical care. The return of Japanese prisoners after surrender spread these revelations throughout Japan. Former POWs became unwitting ambassadors of American abundance, their testimonies more powerful than any occupation propaganda. They told of ships where sailors complained about food that Japanese would consider feasts, where ice cream was routine, where enlisted men lived better than Japanese nobility. Commander Mitsuo Fuchida, the Pearl Harbor architect who experienced American abundance, converted to Christianity and became a missionary. His transformation from architect of surprise attack to preacher of reconciliation was rooted in that first cup of coffee aboard USS Missouri. The Americans had every reason to hate me, to let me die. Instead, they gave me medical care, food, and dignity. This abundance of spirit was more powerful than any weapon. Statistical summary from U.S. Naval Records: daily caloric intake. U.S. Navy, 4,100 calories. IJN, 1,400 calories. Freshwater production. Large U.S. carriers, 140,000 gallons daily. Ice cream production. USS Lexington, 500 gallons daily. Bread production. USS Enterprise, 15,000 loaves daily. Mail delivery. Weekly, even in combat zones. Movie screenings, 2 to 3 different films. Weekly, laundry. Twice, weekly clean uniforms. Medical supplies. Full surgical capacity at sea. The Japanese prisoners who experienced American carrier abundance returned to a destroyed nation with a revolutionary message. The enemy's strength came not from cruelty, but kindness, not from deprivation, but abundance, not from spirit, but logistics. Their testimonies helped prepare Japan for occupation and transformation. They had seen the future, and it tasted like chocolate ice cream served at sea during battle. The transformation of Japanese military personnel through exposure to American naval abundance represents one of history's most complete ideological reversals. Warriors who expected to die for the Emperor instead lived to tell of American ice cream machines. Pilots who attempted suicide attacks were saved to witness democracy's casual plenty. Sailors trained for spiritual warfare discovered that material abundance sustained rather than corrupted fighting spirit. In the end, the ice cream machines on American carriers achieved what bombs could not: complete destruction of Japanese militarist mythology. The soft serve machines that operated while ships burned, the fresh bread baked during battles, the medical care given to enemies, These revelations transformed Japanese understanding of American power and their own defeat. They returned to Japan not as defeated warriors, but as witnesses to abundance beyond imagination, carrying truths that would reshape their nation from militarist empire to democratic ally. The story reminds us that sometimes the greatest victories are won not through destruction, but demonstration, that abundance can be more powerful than arms, that the way a nation feeds its enemies reveals its true strength. The Japanese, who couldn't believe American carriers had ice cream machines, learned that democracy's greatest weapon was its ability to create plenty, even in war, to share abundance even with enemies, to maintain humanity even in battle's fury.